Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 261. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 25th of July. The year is speeding along in the year 2023 and I'm streaming live from this beautiful Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Paradise on earth. To some. You know, paradise has some hiccups here. This isn't a utopia paradise. This paradise has quite a bit of faults, but nonetheless it's some kind of paradise. So if you're viewing this over on Instagram, over on TikTok, or you are looking at this live on YouTube or on repeat on YouTube, Nathan Spring over there on YouTube, you can head over there and subscribe. Only need about 50 more to close in on the 1,000 subscriber mark. So wherever you are viewing this, make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment if you are looking at this on repeat over there on YouTube, and you can join the discussion on Instagram or TikTok as we talk about the topic. What we're talking about tonight, good night Trini Hotep over on TikTok there. The main conversations are over on TikTok, just by the way, that's where most people are, if you want to head over there. But anywhere you are, read the comments nonetheless. Yeah, the topic we're talking about today is a breakthrough new method in treating diabetes, a revolutionary method coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, the University of the West Indies right here in Trinidad and Tobago. They have done some studies and found a method that is 4 times better at treating diabetes, type 2 diabetes, than one of the foremost drugs. Would you believe that? And I think this is very important. Let's head in quickly to see what this method is. Jumping in quickly to this. New breakthrough in type 2 diabetes fight with enhanced intensive lifestyle intervention. Diabetes is one of the most common chronic non-communicable diseases and has been described by health professionals as one of the most frightening scourges in the world. But there is a silver lining, as new data presented by a team of researchers from the University of the West Indies and Florida International University shows that a technique called Enhanced Intensive Lifestyle Intervention, EILI, is 4 times more effective at keeping patients' blood sugar low, helping patients lose weight and belly fat, reducing their A1C concentrations, and is effective at sending diabetes into remission in a majority of patients. And that's not all. The data also shows that EILI, which includes a change in diet, exercise regime, family and therapeutic support, can effectively get nearly 90% of patients off medication within 3 to 6 months, improve their quality of life, and improve worker productivity much faster than metformin or applying exercise alone, because they compared this Caribbean study with another study that was done in Mexico and the United Kingdom, where they tested metformin, which is a primary drug that they use in the treatment of this type 2 diabetes. And what would you know? This new revolutionary style of treating the lifestyle disease works 4 times better. Now, listen to this. It's a lifestyle disease, so they figured that they would change the lifestyle. Who would have thought about that? Who could have even thought? Wonderful. This EILI program is not just about lifestyle intervention. Patients have a 360-degree support system in place that will help them make steady progress and achieve their goals, said Neptune. Neptune is the guy who carried out this study. Diabetes is a lifestyle disease, but we are not putting any emphasis on the patient's lifestyle, he stressed. If we all agree that it's a lifestyle disease, then we have to address our lifestyle first, and that is what the EILI program does, said Neptune. Listen, this is something that I have been saying for so long now. I have been saying this for so long. It it annoys me that so often in the modern world we have become so technologically advanced that we have advanced ourselves past the point of common sense. So someone will be eating too much sugars, too much carbohydrates, and when they eat that, they process it, turn it into fat. Their body can't handle all of that, and it creates negative health consequences. They get diseased. Now we stumble upon this person that is eating too much, and we tell them, well, sir or ma'am, what you need is a drug. You need a drug to come and undo all of the sugar that you are eating and consuming to make it not be there anymore. Why Nisi? Moses George says we have lost the ability to differentiate between food and poison. And you know, I don't think it's only food. I think this is a modern conceptualization. It's how a lot of people think in modern times. We think like, let's not punish the action, let's cure the consequence. I'll leave but you're talking the things as you damn well should. Thank you, Darren Ellis over there on IG. Appreciated for tuning in for the little while. I think it's a kind of modern conceptualization where so many times we understand, okay, action causes consequence. We want to stop consequence. So let's figure out some technological new advanced way to undo the consequence instead of stop doing the actions. Which makes more sense. If you are doing things that create negative health results, do you take a drug to try and undo those negative natural health results, health consequences, or do you not do those things? It's the same case. Oh, Trini Hotep says it's the same case with abortions. You see, you're extrapolating very well from what I'm saying. I didn't want to have the need to spell it out all directly, but there are lots of things where that is the case in modern times. Moses George says something like taking Panadol for headache instead of dealing the cause of the headache. You see, with a headache, if it is that you aren't eating, you have a headache because you haven't eaten all day, and you take a Panadol to undo the headache, and you still don't eat. Well, you're going to get a numb death. That's what's going to happen. And I think that's where a lot of focus, even when it comes to health, that's where a lot of focus should be. And that was one of the things, even back with the pandemic of the last 3 years or so, that bit of controversy that went by. Even during that was a problem that many people had, where, okay, you said that there are vaccines. These vaccines are here to help and to fix this. Okay, right? The vaccines are there. But what else? What are the other recommendations? Are there any lifestyle recommendations? Anything that I could do, any actions that I could do or not do that would help me out in the meantime? No, let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about the drugs. What are we doing? And then we reach to the point where we try to make it seem like for a human being to control the actions that cause a consequence is impossible. No. That's being hateful. That's being hurtful. To me, what this study shows is that actions have consequences, actions have reactions, and there are a predictable set of outcomes that you are going to get in life. And you see, this is where morality comes from. This is where having a determined set of behaviors comes from. You see, disciplined behavior is about doing the right actions to get the right consequences. It's not just about doing things to show that you're also good or better than someone. No, it's that actions have consequences, so I want to do the right actions to get the right consequences. That's what discipline is. I can't try to excuse indisciplined behavior, excuse undisciplined people who don't do the right actions, and then try to undo the consequences as they come. It's not going to happen. It doesn't work. And as we see here, what works best is actually catching it at the action level. But I saw a very interesting additional article to this whole idea. Discipline is white supremacy. Yes, it is, Trini Hotep. Yes, it is. To this whole idea of the lifestyle diseases and non-communicable diseases here in Trinidad and Tobago, especially coming from what we eat, eating ourselves to death. You know, I draw this example. To me, this seems like, and I've said this before, this seems to me like if someone offers me a one-way trip to Papua New Guinea on the opposite side of the world, where I would go and I would stay permanently and never return to ever see my family, friends, or loved ones ever again. And what I get when I go there are several exquisite dishes. I could eat what I want. I could have a buffet of ice cream, etc. But I'll never get to see anyone I love again. I'll never get to communicate with them again. Would I do that? No, I won't. And I presume most people would not also. That's literally what you're doing. You're exchanging seeing and spending time with your loved ones in this land of the living for food. Like, bro, you'd kill yourself for a plate of food. I mean, several plates of food and maybe a couple buckets of ice cream, but you'd kill yourself for some buckets of ice cream and cake. Are we crazy? They don't see it like that. Well, I would hope that they do. I would hope that they start seeing it like that. Now got the topic. It's more complex than that, Michelle Sudan says. There is some more complexity that is added on top of that, but it isn't really more complex than that. It is food. The vast majority of it is food. And the reason I say this, Michelle Sudan, is because I am coming off the basis of a study that just came out, coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, right here out of the University of the Western News, where they showed that a change in lifestyle, a change in diet, exercise, and the social situation around people, so they have that social support structure, is 4 times more effective at treating diabetes, is much more effective at losing weight, at losing belly size, at decreasing your A1C concentration levels than the top drug that they test for diabetes. That's where I'm coming from with this. It is. Food can be an addiction and used to heal trauma. Well, yes. That's why I said there are complications on top of that layer. But at the end of the day, it is food. And I think you could see it in that same way. Yes, the food could become an addiction. The food could be used to replace trauma. But nonetheless, it is still food, and you are still eating it, and you are still compromising your life with your loved ones for food. Is it that food has become a feast for the 5 senses instead of actually giving us health and strength? Well, that has become the case a lot in modern times. You see, many people who complain about the poverty and how difficult we have it in modern times, they're being a bit dishonest. A lot of the problems we face in modern times actually has to do with how easy things have become. Food has become so easy to get that it's no longer about sustenance. People don't eat to survive. They eat for taste. They eat for gratification. It's a kind of hedonistic vibe where you would go and spend thousands of dollars per month just on eating. So yes, it has become a kind of feast of the senses. That is true, because of the amount we have access to. So it's not as easy to break. It actually releases serotonin. I agree. I'm not saying about the ease to break, but it's not difficult to take the breaking, but it's not that difficult to break. All you have to do is not eat. Like, yes, I understand you wouldn't feel as happy about it, but that's all. You wouldn't feel as happy about it. Food gives pleasure, same feel good chemical in the brain. You see, I won't give people that excuse, because there are many things that you could develop that are very horrible for you and for general society that would give you an immense level of pressure. So an immense level of pleasure. So for some of those abusers, for some of the sadists, the sexual sadists, the people who get off from some of those things, they get serious pleasure from it, but it's that does not make it a sensible thing to go about doing. With alcohol, you can quit cold turkey. You need food to survive, thus actually harder to break. No, I don't think so, actually, because the food that gets you that size isn't survival food. And the thing with food, if you are in a house and you buy groceries of a certain kind, you eat what is in your house, or you'd have to leave your house, go out somewhere and find the fix for yourself. So, I mean, there are many ways to solve this problem. And, you know, I note that many of the times it's so impossible to solve people. It's so complex. It's so impossible to solve this. And then this person sees a bit of difficult times, and all of a sudden, bam, it changes like that. It changes like that. If their income drops, all of a sudden the problem becomes very easy to solve. You know, I just have to buy that bucket of ice cream every Friday. You know, okay, you lost your job, you don't have the money to buy the bucket of ice cream anymore, and all of a sudden, whoops, that problem is solved. I understand that there are hormonal reactions. I understand that you can give yourself an addiction to food. I understand. But that doesn't change the fact that it's very simple. You don't put food in your mouth. At the end of the day, with all the, you see, Michelle, so that's the problem I have sometimes with, like, the social workers, the psychologists, the therapists. Sometimes they attempt to pathologize too many things. So it's always, you know, something that's so much more no, it's not. It's a behavioral thing. Behave yourself. This is a matter of discipline. If we put you in the military underneath a drill sergeant, you will lose that weight in 6 months. If you are underneath your single mother who is giving you money to spend on this fatty food on a constant basis, all of a sudden it's impossible to control. And you know, I just can't do it. And I just, you know, I just look at food and get fat. And okay, let's put you under the control of a drill sergeant in the military, and all of a sudden this is solved. It's science, and behavioral management is science. Yeah, but a lot of it is quack science. Have you heard about the crisis of replication in almost all social sciences? The problem with many of the studies in social sciences, they are not replicable, meaning that the conclusions gained from many of those studies should be looked at with a heaping bucket of salt. Yes, a lot of it is quack science. Michelle Sudan, are you doubting me on this? Would you like to join the live and we discuss whether a lot of behavioral science is quack science? Would you want to join me and let's discuss that? We'll go through some of the studies that are at the core of behavioral sciences, and we could go into the actual studies themselves and see what they are, if they make sense, and if they indeed are quack at the core. We could go through that. I'll be very willing to do that. Aaron Mohammed says over on Instagram, first time joining the live, tell me what to expect here. We're talking current affairs, bro. Current affairs. Alright, where is Michelle? Michelle, for some reason, I'm not seeing you. What's going on? What changed on your profile? I'm not seeing you. I'm not seeing your profile to join in the discussion. I don't know what's happening. And I'm not saying that behavioral science is a quack science. I am saying that there are many areas in behavioral science where quack science has been pushed as factual. At the jump, let's start with one of the bases. Gender studies. Do you know who the father of gender studies is in the general behavioral sciences area? I've spoken about this many times. And the studies that were used to show that gender is a social construct. Gender has been a word around for thousands, well, not thousands, but for a long time now. But the idea that gender is a social construct came out of the behavioral sciences in the 50s, 60s, somewhere there. Dr. Kinsey, a notorious pedophile, a man who is quoted as saying the reason that pedophilia harms children is because of the parents' overreaction and exaggeration of the effect. That's his quote. He was the guy that coined gender, that guy. And the studies that they used came from, one of the studies that were used came from the studies of Dr. John Money, another guy who was a founder in behavioral sciences, studied behavioral sciences. The notorious twin studies, where both of them ended their life after he was finished with them. Again, another notorious pedophile who abused those boys and then lied about the science to say that this experiment proved that gender is a social construct. And that's at the core of an entire area of study. And it's not the only area. You see, the problem is in the hard sciences. You can't use a one to paint everyone we are talking about behavioral. Well, that is behavioral science. That's literally what that is. That's the general area. And I'm not using a one to paint everyone. I'm not saying everything in behavioral science is quack science. I said this is about the third or fourth time I said that. I am not saying that. I am saying that what I said at the jump is that we need to take a lot of what is given in behavioral science with heaping loads of salt, because there's a crisis of replication. You see, studies are very difficult to do in behavioral sciences. Like, all right, in physics, an experiment is you set up the variables, you set up the constants, and you make your observations on what happens as these variables and constants come into contact with each other. And the same thing would happen over and over and over again, and you make your observation and take your results based on that. Now, in behavioral sciences, it's very difficult to get constants and to evaluate all of the variables and know all of the variables and know all of the constants. That's a very difficult thing to do. And then the experiments themselves are very difficult to do also. So, for example, there was what was it, the Stanford prison experiment? Who did the prison experiment? Where they put a lot of students inside a prison and they allowed some to be prison guards and some to be prisoners, and they watched the difference in treatment as they went on. Now, I have read up that study before, and it's damning about the human nature. But then you read further addendum to that study that came out either this year or late last year, and they said that the study was actually fudged. The people who carried out this study actually told the students what to do, and a lot of the results, when they went back and got the first-hand testimony, a lot of the results were fudged and cheated. Michelle Sudan says, but we can have general observations, which gives us a good insight into human behavior. Exactly. And that's where I am at with a lot of behavioral sciences. If a behavioral scientist is attempting to tell me that something is proven science when my observational reality of human behavior tells me this sounds ludicrous, I am going to again apply my bucket of salt rule, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying about obesity and about those health factors. So lots of people talk about, that this person is fat, but they're overweight because they have a genetic problem, or this is a problem, or this is a listen. Every overweight person I know eats their way into being overweight. That's how they're overweight. You spend time with an overweight person generally and you see exactly why they're that way. And it has shown that trauma in childhood causes stasis in development, and coping strategies can vary. I agree. I didn't say that I don't think food could be a crutch. I didn't say I don't think it could be a coping mechanism. I agree. But so could alcohol. So could cocaine. There are many coping mechanisms. Food could be one, but you're killing yourself with it. And to say that because it was a coping mechanism makes it somehow, let's okay, it's a coping mechanism, so you go ahead. No. Everyone goes through life and comes out scarred. No one goes through life unscathed. The idea that your trauma is somehow supposed to be your excuse for bad actions doesn't make sense, because again, we're talking about actions cause consequences. There aren't enough drugs to undo the consequences of your actions. If you do not want the negative consequences, we need to not do the actions. I do not care, and neither does reality care about all of your life's trauma. Too bad, nobody cares. Work harder. That's reality. People kill themselves. Yes, they do, and people do all kinds of things. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Kilvon says, my general rule is if something is not demonstrably true to me based on observation, it is not real. Don't switch off your brain to be one of the cool kids. Nathan, everyone coping levels are different. Some people need help. I agree. Some people need help. I agree. But I think it's foolish for someone to assume that they are one of those people that need help. I would tell people, if you are overeating, don't assume that you are one of those unique overeaters that needs some kind of professional intervention to lose weight. No, just assume that you're eating too much, and assume that if you stop eating and take the cravings and the little hunger pangs you get, assume that if you do that, you lose weight. And if you assume that, watch the magic happen. You see, I recognize that many people, for many people, the idea of the trauma, and I use this as a coping mechanism, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. For the people that talk about, this is because of this, and this is because of this, and the reason I do that is, for some reason, it almost always becomes a coping mechanism. If you say that you are too weak to lift up the load, then surprise, you become too weak to lift up the load. I understand what you are saying, Michelle. That's a very harsh perspective. But I think that harsh perspective is the harsh reality of life. No offense meant to you in particular and to women in general, and this may come off as sexist, but I think that's why single mother homes send so many young men to jail, to prison. Because for many women, harshness is too brutal. It's too, you can't be harsh. Don't be so harsh. But for many men, they understand that harshness teaches you the reality. And I think that's why we see the single mother home sending their sons to jail and prison. You need to be harsh. You need to be harsher, because that's the reality of life. It's the reality of life. If you jump from too high a height and you hit a hard surface, your body is going to splat and you are going to end your existence. That's harsh, but it's the reality. If you are a young man who can produce functioning sperm, and you have intercourse with a young lady who has functioning eggs that are ready to be fertilized, you are going to become a parent, very likely. That's harsh, but it's reality. Most overeating, sorry, is tied into sexual abuse even for men if you listen to their stories. I don't doubt that. And to me, there are lots of things tied into that level of abuse. When you listen to many people's stories, if you scratch past the surface, to me, and this is another reason why it's not that I am not empathetic, but I understand that's the reality for everyone. If you scratch just a little past the surface of every single adult human being, there are horror stories and heartbreaking stories to hear. I don't think you could speak to any adult human being and scratch past the surface, talk to them, see beneath the surface, and not be brokenhearted for them. Everyone has those stories. No one gets through life unscathed. You are not unique for feeling difficulties. You are not unique for seeing the harsh realities of life. How we deal with the reality in some circumstances means life or death to some. Again, going back to the fact that we all deal with things differently. All right, here's the thing. It is the reality that for some people life is so difficult they can't take it and they cash out. That's their reality. I would not hold the belief that that conclusion, that end, was inevitable. I would not hold the belief, I would not hold the idea that the only way you could stop someone from reaching that far is if they see someone who was educated in a university on behavioral therapy and they speak them through it and they go through the weight loss project. I don't believe that. You see, here's my problem with that. If I'm giving advice to someone who lives in a society that has no university, there are no therapists or psychologists there, and they're struggling, someone landed down and gave them vegetable oil and they started frying food and that was it. The weight started to go up. Problems. And I want to give them advice. Am I going to tell them that, you know what you all need in your society? Your society needs to develop a university. And you all need to train a 3-year degree for behavioral therapy. And that therapist then needs to have 3 years on the job training. And then they need to be approved by the board and the council of therapists, internationally recognized therapists. And then after that, that therapist is going to talk to you, Mr. Fatty, and then that therapist, Fatty Boy, is going to teach you how to lose weight. No, I don't believe that. I do not believe that. That's the quote I see. I see this quote regularly spinning around online. If we start sending children to school to learn how to walk, within 10 years, people are going to believe that children couldn't learn how to walk without a teacher. That's kind of where I'm at with a lot of these things. I kind of see the same thing with depression. Now, I am not one of those to say that depression doesn't exist. I believe it does exist. But I think we should pause and take a look at the facts, the reality, that in the time that it took for behavioral sciences, psychology, therapy to go to the furthest extent, the time that it took for physical life to become the easiest it has ever been, the time that it took for there to be the least amount of wars ever in human history, the time that it took for life in general society to be the safest it ever was, in that same time, depression and self-harm has skyrocketed. So for then those same professionals to turn around and tell me the solution is more professionals and a softer life, it just does not 1 + 1 = 2 to me. Funny enough, there was a South Park episode talking about this exact topic. Michelle says, Nathan, I get it. You're seeing it from a logical perspective, but there are nuances that you're not aware of and the damage trauma does and how it can manifest. Kelvin says, in Japan and Korea, obesity is vilified. It's cool and it's uncool and not accepted. The result is very few people are overweight. Yes, listen, fat shaming works. I could tell you, in my family, we are fat shamers. My family is filled with fat shamers. Listen, you all see me. I am a slim, trim guy. If I walk in by my parents and, I have a scale, sometimes they take a little bit of a late night flour. You see, flour late night, problems, people, problems. And, you get just a little extra something in the mid-region. All of a sudden, my mother want to be poking my side and, what is that there, boy? Yeah, you're putting on something. Like, oh, jeez, boy. But it works. It works. Because I can't get fat by mistake. It will never happen. It can't be unknown how I got that weight. It will never happen like that. And I agree, Michelle, as I said. I do believe that there is trauma, and trauma can manifest in different ways, etc., etc., etc. And maybe your trauma is so bad that you need assistance. Maybe it is. Well, then seek out the assistance you need, if that be the case. But this is coming from, as I said, the story that we read that showed the 4 times more effective treatment than drugs is an integrated, enhanced, all-around approach that isn't focused on drugs, focused on changing your lifestyle. And personally, I believe the same thing will work for a whole lot of other diseases. Change your lifestyle and it may surprise you how easy some of those diseases are to get over. Who else is waiting in the car? Ah, yes, Michelle. Finally, I see you. You weren't popping up before. And as I was saying, another note on the behavioral side of this, on the purposeful us causing some of this side. Just to jump into one more article quickly before we discuss some of that. More KFC outlets per person in TNT compared to any other country. There are more KFC outlets per person in Trinidad and Tobago than any other country in the world. KFC TNT has the status of being the highest penetrated market per capita, with 60 stores available to ensure easy access to its products, the company told the Express Business. But this is not the only global milestone the franchise's local outlets have achieved during the 50 years on TNT shores. Bear in mind, not only are we the highest penetrative market, the daily transactions at the Independence Square branch located in downtown Port of Spain once exceeded that of KFC's branches in major cities around the world. This location's proximity to Citygate and other arteries of the Port of Spain public transport network connected KFC with hundreds of members of the traveling public daily, yada yada yada. So again, we're talking about lifestyle diseases, things that we have a choice in. KFC in Trinidad and Tobago has the highest per capita number of stores than anywhere in the world. Bear in mind, us here in Trinidad and Tobago, we developed the hot and spicy flavor of KFC. And from that hot and spicy flavor of KFC, branched off the Zinger and the Cruncher, little small TNT. So, yeah, I'm sorry, but maybe some of the KFC eating has to do with trauma, but I don't think the trauma of colonialism in Trinidad and Tobago is what is causing us, really and truly, to eat that much KFC. Anybody? Michelle, you had something to say there? That's no, I'm not hearing you. Apologies.
I don't know why I'm hearing.
Yeah, I hear you now.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Hi, good night. Good night. You wanted to go ahead first, Ronnie, and then I think you talk. Thank you. I wanted to say, in regard to Michelle saying, trauma and trauma and trauma, right? It is unfortunate because, listen, when you're eating, like, let me say trauma eating, like, you can't help yourself. When a heart attack passing, it's not saying, girl, your father was so and so, well, I'm going to pass you by. That's not how you're still going to get a heart attack. So it doesn't make sense. And basically, all of it is just excuses for why you're doing it, right? Now, I understand that it's not difficult because I myself suffer with that badly. Like, when I tell you, I notice that within myself, and I was be like, okay, what can I do? How can I fix it? And it is really hard to fix, right? But it isn't something that I had to observe and I had to try because my cousin, who's younger than me, right? She has stroke. You understand? She's like 20, 25. She has stroke. And with a cane. You understand? But I had to be like, okay, that doesn't look. I wanna nice and healthy, you know. Nothing so bad about happened to me. I never spent a night in the hospital, except for when I was born. So I don't want to just because I find it difficult. Because in all honesty, something that you can't, it's just so hard. And in life you have to do the hard things. Because if you want to, you can do the easy things, but in the end it will not help. Like I could just buy KFC and I could be enjoying my life and be like, yeah, but alcohol and whatever. Fun and having this great time. And then 2 years on, I have a heart attack or have a stroke, a blood clot, or these things. It is not just you can't just think about it here now. Like, yeah, the trauma was bad, so I'm gonna be addicted to this thing. But you have to think about the effects on it will have on the next 10 years. So probably we should employ people like look at the long term effects of this short term gain, this comfort that you're getting right now. Listen, being fat is very hard. You don't want to be that. Trust me, it'll be sad. You'll be the saddest person alive. No matter what Liz will say, no matter what Sam Smith say. Listen, them are rich. Them can be fat. When you poor or you fast fat, it's very difficult. You don't want to be that in life. You'll feel like very self-conscious. I don't like you as much as just imagine people don't like you just because you're fat. That's crazy, right? You don't want to ever be in that position. You always want to be your best self. And unfortunately, I'm telling people, to be your best self now is white supremacy. It's white supremacy. White supremacy. Yes, just be your best self. No, you're making slim down to 100 pounds, but I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I get and I understand, all right, in terms of when we look at it at the bare, 1 + 1 = 2, meaning lifestyle diseases are exactly in the name, lifestyle diseases, all right? It's about what we eat, what we consume, what we drink, you understand? And yes, you're correct. And lifestyle changes definitely do work a lot better than medication and has more long-lasting effects because medications have side effects, things that you have to consider long-term. But my point is that it's not a straight line. Most times, it is not a straight line. It's not necessarily just saying, okay, I'm going to get up today and say, all right, I'm going to do this. A lot of people, and this is just my experience, any field that I am in, usually when we get clients, especially morbidly obese, I'm not talking about people who are 5 pounds overweight, 10 pounds overweight. I'm talking about people who are hundreds of pounds overweight. You're talking about 100 pounds overweight, 80, 90, 100, you're moving up the scale, where their weight is really impacting their health. A lot of times when people get to that level, what I'm saying is there's usually a cause. All right? There is something buried. People do not want to eat themselves into oblivion. People do not want to carry around an extra 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 pounds. People don't want to get a heart attack. People don't want to sit down in a clinic all day and take a heap of medication. But there's a reason why it is as challenging, because, and I say trauma because that is exactly what it is. A trauma that happens most times in childhood, very young, that triggers a set of behaviors as you get old. And remember, as a society, we are not a very talkative society. Mental health issues are not something that we talk about. From the time somebody say they're depressed or whatever, the first thing people just like to say is, oh yeah, you mad, or yeah, nothing wrong with you. And we try to hide it. And we stigmatize it to the point people don't talk about it. And they feel shame about it. And so to me, to ignore those things is really causing more harm than good. Because I'll give you an example. I had a client. He had a critical diagnosis. And he was morbidly obese. And because I sat with him and we talked, you know what he said to me? He said, no one has ever listened to him the way I listen. And because of that, he felt worthy. He felt motivation, because people forget depression affects motivation. You feel unworthy. Why am I even bothering? Why nobody cares about me? So why should I even care? I know it may be hard for people to understand, because like I said, it doesn't compute for some people. Just get up and move, just get up. But to be honest, sometimes even the getting up is really difficult. So I just want us to be mindful that not everybody can. So when you see somebody like that, so usually for me, and by the way, the client, sorry to go back, he started to lose weight because he had that support and he felt like he was being listened to. All right, so some people use alcohol because alcohol is not a visible trauma, meaning you don't carry it on your body like 500 pounds. We let it pass. Because as you rightfully said, Nathan, we are a society that fat shames.
Yes.
So why am I going to talk to you?
Why? As you're saying there, I agree with everything you just said. Everything you just said, I agree. And to be clear, as fat shamey as I sound now, I was much worse. And when I first heard that people call obesity a disease, I was like, that's not a disease. You're just eating too much. But understanding what a disease is as in a negative physiological state in your body. Yes, it is. And as you said rightfully, when you think about it, nobody wants to be overweight. It's not a wanted thing. Yes, the person wanted to eat, but they didn't want to be overweight. So I understand and I agree. Someone who is that size doesn't want. That's why I think especially the fat acceptance movement, those people are evil. They want you dead. They're trying to kill you.
I don't agree with that at all. That is something very toxic.
Yes.
It is extremely toxic.
Yes.
And they themselves, if you listen to them, they get very defensive when you talk about it, because at the end of the day, if you peel back the layers, they are hurting at their core, you know. There is something there that they are trying to hide and look for. That they're still looking for love and they're looking for acceptance.
And the difficulty with being overweight too. Most people who are really, really overweight, they didn't get overweight, generally speaking, like just over the last 10 years. Most of them would have been that way since they were children. And in that case, that's not even their fault. I said this in the video I did today. I find it to be wickedness as a parent to know what happens, because you're an adult. You know what happens, as Ronnie was talking about, living a life as an overweight person is a more difficult thing. The physical stress of it. I remember when I put on about an extra 30 pounds. For me, to play football was a more difficult thing. When I lost the weight, for me to go back and play sports as I normally do was so much easier. You literally felt the difference. So physically, it's more difficult. Socially, it is a lot more difficult. And you would do that as a parent. Allow your child, give them a purposeful disadvantage in starting off. I find that's wickedness. And for some people, they started off as at a disadvantage. When you came to awareness on earth, you just came about and, whoo, hey, I'm alive, I'm a human. Oh no, I am a fat human. And that's your parents' fault. That's not your fault. So yes, it could be difficult. Yes, there are parts of it that aren't your fault, and I understand and agree where you talk about depression, and oftentimes great obesity, morbid obesity would very likely be linked to depression too. And yes, depression has a loss of motivation part to it, and it's a self-defeating negative feedback loop cycle, because you lose motivation, and that allows you to not exercise, not move as much, and you put on weight. Then as you put on weight, you feel bad about putting on weight, so you get more depressed and you lose more motivation, which causes you to put on more weight, and it keeps going that way and defeating itself as a negative feedback loop. And I understand that for some of those people, maybe they might need someone outside of the loop to come in there and stop the loop, and give them some assistance to, jump out of this loop. Give them the extrinsic motivation. There's intrinsic, extrinsic. Give them that motivation from outside. I don't disagree. I'm talking about this as if you are the person yourself. I'm talking to you as if that's you I'm speaking to. You can't expect that some extrinsic motivation is going to come there and do it for you. That's not how reality necessarily works. Now, bear in mind the EILI, the Enhanced Integrated Program that they were using. Part of it, they had change of diet, they had exercise, but part of it was getting that social structure around you too, because that's a very important part of it.
About to talk about a support system, because a lot of people who tend to have, you see, it's easy for persons who have had supportive systems to look at somebody who may not have a supportive system and say, hey, you could do better, and not realize the reality. This is why behavioral science, well, I want to go back to the behavioral science, but this is why people are so complex, but yet they kind of operate on a, almost like the base is very similar. Usually there's a trauma that feeds off into a lot of maladaptive behaviors, and they cope in whatever way they can. But when you dig to the core, I bet you everything there is usually some level of pain, unhealed pain, trauma. And as much as you see people walking around here, I can watch somebody getting angry on the road with rage, and I can tell you what's going on with that guy or that woman, because healthy people do not behave that way. Healthy people do not respond that way. You understand? And Trinidad, and I say this to all my colleagues, we are a high functioning mentally ill society. Very true.
I don't
mentally ill society.
I don't disagree with that, but here's where I think I have a little nuance on that. I don't know if I would call some of those things necessarily mental illness. Maybe if I get the good definition that we're talking about exactly here, then it's like we were talking about a couple sessions ago, where everybody's a narcissist, everybody's ex is a narcissist, and if you're talking about just in the spectrum sense of things, where everyone is on the spectrum of narcissism, and maybe you're a little more here or there, well then yes, maybe. But if you're talking about narcissism as in a clinical mental malady, a clinical mental pathology, then no. And if you're talking about mental illness on the sense of a pathology itself, I don't know if I would say that. What I would say is that everyone, it's like my view of ADHD. I am nearly 100% certain if I was tested when I was a child, they would have said I had ADHD. Nearly 100% certain. If you listen to me and watch me function, you might think so too. But I am unsure some of the ADHD and even the autism diagnosis that you see these days, I am unsure about how much of them are an illness, or if it's just in some cases, humans being unique. We are all different, as you say. We all respond different to the different stimuli we experience throughout life, and we would experience many negative stimuli as we go through life, and we respond differently to it. So when you see a human who is an accumulation of their discipline, of their reaction to stimuli, of their lived experiences, and you see them behave, I don't know how much of that behavior I might say is a mental illness versus just the uniqueness of a human.
See, that's the thing, right? So we can't look at it as in terms of a point. It's more of a scale, right? It's not a definite, it's a scale. So if I had to make a diagnosis, it would not all necessarily be narcissism, but I think it's more borderline personality. If we check from a cultural perspective, a lot of people unsure of who they are, and then we are, and because of that, if you go really way back and you want to talk about colonialism and slavery and all that, this kind of master slave mentality or indentureship kind of mentality where we have this, and you would get a lot of things from it. Where colorism is concerned, the way we deal with certain, you realize Trinidad, for example. This is my pet peeve. We tend to like to have ownership of things and people. Domestic violence, at its core, is a man feeling he has ownership over her, of his female. As parents, we beat children because we feel, I make you, therefore you are mine, and you are my property, therefore I do with you as I will. That is a slave master kind of mentality. All right, and from that, remember, different personalities. Some are innate, you're born with it. Some are developed societally, and this is why I tend to tread very carefully, Nathan, when it comes to deal with topics where mental health is concerned, because I feel like if we had a more healthy view of treating with mental health issues, we would as a society. And communication, oh my lord, communication, we do not do well. We cuss and we fight and we get on. I don't know why. Probably again.
That's how we are.
No, but you see, that's not an excuse. That's how we are.
But Michelle, I wonder sometimes when you say, okay, like we are an unhealthy mental society because of that. What is the comparison to? Where is there this healthy human society?
Anyone, there is, I think what we can do, we look at the best case scenario. Remember, I mentioned scales. So we can project, okay, if all things being equal, what a healthy person may look like in terms of, we communicate. Not saying you don't get angry and have your regular emotions, because emotions are part of life. Some people, like I say, you get upset for something, you might quarrel. That's normal. As a matter of fact, if you do not respond, that will be abnormal.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a scale. So in other words, it's I can't explain all of it in terms of, because it is a lot, and it's a lot of studies and a lot of people's perspective. These theorists would theorize, and a lot of their perspectives. You're talking about Carl Jung. You're talking about Bandura. You're talking about
Young is my guy. I like Carl Jung. Young, everything Young says makes sense to me, kind of way. And
Bandura talked about social learning.
But just now,
yeah, Ronnie, go ahead.
But Michelle, if that is the case, right, then no society functions properly mentally. Therefore, is it that there is no mental illness because we all are just guessing by doing what we to do or what we can do? Because there is no reason of what the perfect person would be anyway, because there is none. All of us just have to do what we have to do. You grow up in a community, you grow up in a country with a particular norm, and you just basically fit the norm, or you try to work well within the. Is that, am I coming across with you? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. As you said, each society has its own norms, values, and so. But if you're in a community, okay, for example, you grew up in a community where I'll use my own community where drinking alcohol may seem as a norm, but yet me being in that community, so other people might seem normal. However, me probably through education, or even just through observation and my own innate personal, maybe even religious beliefs, says, hey, this is not healthy. And then therefore I break out of that norm. I can't call a norm a healthy human being. Those norms that people practice being healthy. All right. We have a general scheme that we work with in terms of healthy lifestyle, the way we communicate, the way we follow rules, regulations, how we respond to each other, interact with each other in society. All right, because and that's what we work with. All right, but when I talk about Trinidad and specifically in terms of our culture, I don't think we need to be social scientists to see people jumping out their whole self and fighting on the highway healthy and a normal way to be.
But here's why I wonder about some of this, Michelle, because for the history of humans, however long you want to look at, if you believe in a short creation history, if you believe in the lengthy full evolutionary history, for the history of humans, violently reacting to opposition is normal human behavior. The idea that what is the normal good thing to do is to be meek and mild and pleasant about it is a modern twist. The irony is, to me, what you're talking about sounds like a Judeo-Christian ethic. It sounds like there's an ideal man, which is Christ, that you're trying to emulate. That's literally the ideological base of what you're saying. It's a religious basis. And what happens now with people who do not have that religious basis for life, who don't see your ideal man as being the ideal man to be, because that's not exactly a scientific basis. That's more a moral basis about the best functioning human being.
Yes, it is more moral, but also we have societal rules that we all agree to and we all sign them to.
But Michelle, the societal rules go back to what Ronnie was talking about with the norms. And what you were saying is you don't hold the norms as being a healthy human being. So the societal rules are kind of irrelevant to the healthy human being side.
When I talk about societal rules, I'm not talking about norms within a particular culture, I'm talking about societal rules as in like not jaywalking and those kinds of societal rules that we abide by.
But aren't those rules based on norms?
Alcohol is not against you.
Right, of course. So that's what I was saying. Drinking alcohol is not against a societal rule. All right? There's no law as far as I'm aware of regarding alcoholism. All right? But
I think public intoxication.
Look at that. Well, but then public intoxication, you have to behave bad.
Yeah.
It's tied into a behavior.
Yeah.
Right?
But if you drink and you could handle your liquor, then you function.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
If you're drinking and you can handle your liquor, then you are functioning and you'll be considered our mentally stable person. Would you now consider that person to be mentally stable? So you're drinking. Is it socially or is it every day you need a drink? Listen, I be around some. What do they call themselves? Functioning alcoholics.
High functioning alcoholics?
Yes. You drink every single day. Possibly go home drunk every single day. And get up and go to work every single day.
That's a significant percentage of the Trinidad and Tobago population do that, Just so you know.
Yeah.
Because that is the beginning of alcoholism. They're alcoholics. High functioning, maybe because of use. But as they get older, you're gonna see liver start to go, kidneys start to go, their brain
Oh, I
function
talking about
stuff.
people in like very old people and stuff, man.
Oh, God bless their genetics.
Yeah, no, there are some, as the saying goes, go Paul luck is not see Paul luck. Eh? There are some people out there that smoke coke for 50 years and they seem fine. That's them. While there are some people 1 year and that was all their body could have taken. I mean,
Then coke, no. If you're talking about cocaine, like, person, I would be like, okay, cool.
yes, yeah, there are some pipers that they just don't go. Not that I want them to die.
They don't look good.
No, there are some health girl. You probably don't know them. There are some very healthy guys out there
Pacanting.
living long.
From starving and walking the whole road and
You during COVID.
Yeah, before we drift too far, Rome, you had something to say there, bro?
yeah, room. Sorry, hi, room.
I realize everybody likes to go up and you know, into jellyfish conversations. But a couple of things. I was listening to Michelle, and must understands that norms and mores, as well as cultural and societal expectations, is different across the world, and it's based on the society. And each society agree on a set of rules that makes a society function. And then from that perspective, we can then determine, based on that particular set of rules set out in that society, what is a healthy human being, or what is expected of a healthy human being. And we are at this point in our history, we are in a very fluent place where what is healthy, what is expected, what is masculine, what is feminine. So the goalpost is constantly changing and redefining itself. So I guess the best way to say it is that it depends on the sect of society that you hail from. Then your psychology, not your psychologist, your psychology is of that community will determine to a certain extent to a primary extent that you are healthy, and then to a secondary extent the wider society. So it's a very chill dynamic. Even in the DSM, there are new terms being added continuously and updating. So the idea of a healthy human being, I believe personally, is no longer a global but a local. It's a local goalpost at this point in time.
Agreed. Agreed. 100%.
You know,
Yeah.
just before you jump in there, Michelle, I like what you're saying there, room, and I think maybe it was always like that to some extent. It's just probably now we're noticing it more, and that is why the connections you have around you are so important. And that is why the idea that you could dictate your pronouns to somebody is ridiculous, because you don't actually dictate your identity. Your circle dictates your identity. Think of it like you're a bat in a cave and you're echolocating, and the walls around you are the people around you. You're just born in blackness. You have no idea about anything, about any orientation, where it's up, where it's down. There are too many variables in this life. As you get your circle around you, you echolocate, okay, my father is there, my mother is there, my brothers, my siblings, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my friends, and they build that reality around you. They build your identity around you. Your identity is built by the people around you. Your identity isn't a self-built, individualistic, atomized thing. That's why the idea that you could tell your pronouns is ridiculous. Anywhere in the world, if you go to a Spanish country, your pronouns are based on that society, how they identify you in Spanish. And that's why the loss of community is such a dangerous thing. When you lose the community, you're literally losing sanity. People are losing their ability to know what makes sense around them if you lose that community kind of idea. And when you have people attempting to make global communities, I think humans aren't made mentally to function with global communities. Your community is supposed to be an accountable number of people that you physically interact with. That's how they affect you. But if your community is a group of people online, you could be behaving ridiculously. They could support your ridiculous behavior because they don't have to live with it on a daily basis. While the people who would have had to live with you on a daily basis, they would have sorted you out long time ago, allowing you to know that behavior is a little crazy, brother. You need to change that. So if that's what I fully agree with what you're saying there, Room. The circles around us, our social circles that we interact with, allow us to maintain our sanity and to develop our sanity in the first place. So yeah, 100% agreement there. Michelle, you're gonna say something?
Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm actually tuning in now because I have to get up in the morning, but I just wanted to close up my thoughts on in terms of I agree, and I'll say it again. I agree with what you all are saying. All right, in terms of lifestyle changes and all of that. My concern is that we, rather than automatically assume that we know a person's situation, let us just show more compassion and kindness and care. All right, because we really don't know what people are dealing with. They look very, very nice in your face, in public, and then where I am, I see them on the back, and you would never expect so many things in somebody's stories. So rather than let's just be a little more kind, a little more compassionate, particularly with each other, the way we deal with each other in our homes. All right, because you see, I see it, and you have your little kids there. You wouldn't believe how much they watch and observe how you interact with your wife, with your family, and they learn. And those things, and sometimes the traumas that are learned, even inadvertently, traumas happen, can really affect how people relate to others and themselves as they grow and as they move on later in life. All right, so that's really just it. Just want you guys to just be a little more, I would like, and not forcing anything on anybody. And as Rome was saying too with the DSM, listen, everything has an agenda. Hear what I'm telling you? You could see a lot of definition change, a lot of things added, and a lot of things taken from what is quote unquote supposed to be normal. All right, because there is something that's bigger than all of us happening. All right, so we take everything with a pinch of salt. Be good to each other, guys. Thanks again, Nathan. Good night, everybody. Good night, Ronnie. Good night, Rome. Take care, guys. Enjoy the rest of the night.
Yeah. As Michelle leaving there, I'm going to make the exit soon. So y'all could say anything y'all have to say there in closing. Just as to point out there, that's exactly the point I was making, Michelle, about behavioral sciences with the bucket of salt. Yeah. What you're saying there, Roman Ronnie.
I was just about to say that all things, all people, all society, all has an agenda. It's just the group that has the bigger footprint or financial resources and access. The agenda becomes the mainstream agenda, and then everybody else's agenda becomes sub-agenda or sector or small agendas. So when we operate with the principle, and even us as human beings in our private life, we have agenda for our families. We have agenda for our friends. We have agenda for our lives. So it's the assumption that every element or every institution operates outside integrity and justice is foolhardy. And that's me.
I agree. The idea that there's a neutral anything anywhere is a lie. Yeah, Ronnie, what's up? And yes, that's who I was making eyes with. Yes.
I was gonna ask Michelle how, because she had brought up the point of us beating our children, to correct them and stuff like that. No, and I'm not saying, we should be beating our children if TikTok listening. But I would like to know, probably Nathan, you could, as a new parent, I don't know, you're probably in the stage to have that problems yet, but it's a parent's job to make their children likable, right? Because I know people have all experience from this children, and as they walk in the room, your eye just turn up the brain, and you're just annoyed to be around them. And it's the same thing for adults, right? We may not want to admit it, but we would need to be likable to exist in society. We need to be likable. You can't be mashing people on and want to talk louder than everybody and expect people to, just be like, oh, well, that's how this person is, and I be friend. Now it does work sometimes, but it wouldn't work all the time. I was wondering, especially for children, how would we make them
likable?
Not just likable, but
disciplined
and obedient and look at this one. Well, there can be that one.
I think you're 100% right. I would use the word likable too when it comes to children, because one of the most important things you could do for your child is making them be a child that other children want to play with. That's nearly one of the most important things. For a child, other children want to play with them. If no child wants to play with your child is in some trouble. Now, when it comes to licks, I don't think anything is necessarily wrong with physical punishment. But here's the thing. I think you could be a fierce believer in licks, in beating a child, and never beat your child. Because the idea of licks is that it's a final punishment to show that there are stages to this. If you pass this level, this happens. If you pass this level, this happens. If you reach to a certain level, there's a level you reach at where you feel physical pain. And I think that's actually a good lesson to teach by and large to children, that there is a level beyond which you will feel some physical pain if you continue like that. But you could train a child in such a way that they never reach that level where they required that. And if they never reach that level, then you never hit them like that. And the other part of that too is, even if you do engage in some corporal punishment, I think the idea is not to damage the child. You're not hitting the child so much that they're permanently scarred from this. That they do feel the sense of, yes, there's a physical consequence that I would feel over a certain level. So that's the way I see that. But to me, one of the most important things in discipline, I'm a new parent, but I am a teacher for a while now, so I've seen some of that. One of the most important things is being serious about your standards. If you tell your child that, okay, you cannot do this, then actually have it that you cannot do that. Don't make lines in the sand that you keep erasing. That's how you train discipline. So the child knows that there's no way my parent is going to allow me to do X. It's not even about the consequence necessarily. It's that my parent is not going to allow this. And that's the training of discipline. Teach actions and consequences 100%. Michelle Sudan. All right, people. That's all I have for now. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. This has been the Mindful Live. Mwah. You're telling the people bye-bye. I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live session, which is going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow is Tobago Talk. We're talking Tobago news tomorrow. Have a lot of stuff coming out of Tobago. So I will see you guys, and I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. I will see you guys later. Bye. Tell them bye-bye. Tell the people bye-bye. You're telling the people bye.